Hello and welcome to another edition of Lost in Science across Australia on the Community Radio Network or streaming through your various listening devices. This is half an hour on the radio where we talk about science. My name's Stu and I've been looking to space in the last little week or so.
To infinity and beyond?
To infinity and beyond, indeed.
Always look to the stars you have. Never your mind on where you are and what you were doing.
Possibly,
yes.
Possibly. But yeah, there's been a lot of space science going on lately and some other spacey news. So I'm going to just sort of have a quick trip to space and well, you know, most of it's been based on Earth, really, the science. But yeah, some interesting space developments over the last couple of weeks or last month or so. Chris, what else has been going on in the world of science?
Well, one thing that's been going on is, well, it's that special time of year when we have the Nobel Prizes.
Science-mas.
It is kind of. I mean, there obviously are a lot of other science prizes now these days. You know, in Australia we have, you know, Eureka prizes and your Prime Minister's prizes. You got your new Breakthrough Prize, which is worth millions of dollars. Yeah. But the Nobel Prizes, they're the big ones that people go for, aren't they? They're like your Olympic gold medals.
They're the OG science prize.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a bit of a look at this year's Nobel Prizes, and you know, are they interesting? Yeah, I think they're interesting. There's some interesting stuff going on there, and yeah, there's some interesting patterns that I think need to be addressed.
Look, it's always interesting to find out who they've settled on. I mean, there's so much science being done all of the time that, you know, there's only a couple of science prizes, I guess, within the Nobel Prizes, but you know, once a year they get a chance to go, this is the most important thing that we looked at this year. That's, you know, it's a pretty big deal.
Look, I guess it is a big deal. But these ones may not seem as big a deal to you, but there is a controversy behind them, I think. So we'll look into that.
Interesting. Well, stay tuned for that later in the show. The opening of the original Star Trek series used to tell us that space was the final frontier. Do you remember that opening sequence?
I do remember that.
But look, obviously there's still a lot more stuff to explore on Earth before we have to turn to space as the final frontier. There's still lots of frontiers that we haven't explored yet.
Yeah, but I think there's always going to be more stuff out in space than there is on Earth.
That is true. But look, you know, part of the reason we look to space and space exploration and science of space is because it does explain a lot of things which do affect us on Earth, you know, physics and all sorts of things, which, you know, the origin of the universe, which is a big question that people ponder. So I just wanted to look at some of the space science stories that have caught my eye recently, and there's been a huge amount of spacey, sciencey stuff out there in even just the last month or so, but there always is, and I feel like we don't get enough time to talk about just how much science there is. But as far as space science, the first little snippet that caught my eye was a sad part of space exploration is that, you know, it's quite dangerous, but one of the early space pioneers who left the Earth early in the space age, Russian cosmonaut Alexei Leonov passed away on the 11th of October in Moscow.
Oh, so in Moscow. He did come back to Earth.
He did come back to Earth,
okay.
Yes. He did. He went to space in 1965, and he was the first person to basically leave a spacecraft while it was in space. So he went for the first spacewalk in March 1965. And from the sound of things, it was pretty basic. He sort of opened the door with his spacesuit on and was tied to a tether, went out in space for a while, hung out for about 12 minutes. And then
was this approved? Was he allowed to do this?
Yeah. It was definitely part of their mission. So he went outside of the Voskhod capsule for 12 minutes, beat the Americans by 3 months. They did the same thing about 3 months later. Now, as I said, space exploration is risky. His spacewalk is a good example of just how risky the early space missions were. Years later, they didn't reveal this at the time, but years later, they revealed that when he went outside, the expansion of the atmosphere inside his spacesuit made it blow up like a balloon, to the point where he couldn't actually fit back through the door of the spacecraft, and he had to like release a little vent so his suit would deflate enough that he could squeeze back through the door. So they didn't think of that before he went out there.
Obvious one, but
So talk about risky. That's a pretty scary sort of situation to find yourself in. That your spacesuit
you're stuck outside.
Too big. Yeah,
you lock the keys in.
Lucky that they had given him the ability to vent his suit. But look, so yeah, sad news that he passed away on the 11th of October. He was, in his 80s, so he was not a young man. But meanwhile, back on Earth, our favourite billionaire and potential supervillain, Elon Musk, has unveiled SpaceX's newest space vehicle, the Starship, which is, it's a pretty cocky thing to call a spaceship, really, a starship.
It implies that it's going to stars rather than to...
rather than just to the moon, which is the first port of call where it's supposed to take people. Yeah. And also, but they are saying it will take people to other planets. This is the ship that SpaceX is saying will take people to Mars and even further away planets than Mars. So they're not just saying, oh yeah, we'll get to Mars. They're going, no, we'll go wherever.
They're not going to another star though, are they?
They're not. They might go to one star, but we know where that one is. It's not very far away.
I don't think they're going to go there either.
No, they will. They go at night, so it's cooler. But look, I've seen pictures of the Starship, and I've got to say, to me, it looks a bit like something that someone sketched on the back of a napkin over a boozy meeting, and engineers have built it exactly. It looks to me like one of those old spaceships from the 50s sci-fi movies. And interestingly, it takes off and lands like those old 50s sci-fi movies. It takes off vertically and it lands vertically on its sort of tail.
This is the same Elon Musk that wants to put us all in vacuum tubes and zip us around on Earth, isn't it? Yeah, I think he's got some really retro ideas.
Yeah, he obviously grew up in a very certain specific era of science fiction, I think. So yeah, look, reusable spaceships that can deliver people to other planets and return them is obviously going to open up space exploration. Whether that's commercial or purely scientific, we'll have to wait and see. But back on Earth, we're still finding out new facts about our own solar system. Using an earthbound telescope in Hawaii, Dr. Scott Shepard and his team have identified another 20 moons orbiting Saturn. An extra 20 moons they didn't even know about. So there's now a total of 82 moons in orbit around Saturn that we have seen and know of. And you might think, wow, that's amazing. That's more than Jupiter now. It's overtaken Jupiter. Jupiter's got 79 that have been seen.
Do we know how small these moons are? Like,
They're getting pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sort of, a few miles across, I think, or a few kilometres sort of thing. But he says that there's probably up to 100 further moons orbiting Saturn, but we're not going to be able to see them from Earth unless we get some more powerful telescopes, effectively. But I mean, really, probably easy to just put one in space and look at them from space. You don't have to worry about, or go there. Borrow Elon's
we'll let
Starship
Elon check it out for us.
And just zip out there for the weekend and back again. Now, in other Earthbound research, scientists have recently identified an interconnected web between galaxies that supports current theories of galactic formation. Unlike what you might have heard from Star Trek Discovery, it's not a network of fungal mycelium connecting the galaxies.
No, that's in subspace, Stu.
Oh, well, see, that's where I got it wrong. It's actually threads of hydrogen gas that span the space between the galaxies. So that's huge amounts of space where these threads are joining up the different galaxies. So the theory is that when the Big Bang kick-started the universe, lots of hydrogen formed very quickly, and it's obviously still the most abundant element in the universe. And the theory was that all that hydrogen collapsed under the force of its own gravity into sheets, and then the sheets collapsed into threads. And
Well, not just its own gravity, because dark matter is a large part of the mass of the universe. So
Yep.
it's kind of also responsible for the formation of the structure.
Yes, so where these threads, this is the theory, where they collapsed and where they intersected, there was a lot more matter, and that's where the galaxies formed, at these intersections of these threads of hydrogen. And there was probably other elements in there as well, but mainly hydrogen. And so on Earth, they looked for specific wavelengths of radiation and actually were able to see these filaments, which do actually connect all of the different galaxies. So that's pretty much demonstrated that theory was pretty close to what actually happened. So the other thing about the intergalactic strands of hydrogen is that that's where the galaxies draw the extra material that keeps the stars burning, basically. So they can actually draw hydrogen from those threads into the galaxy, which then get drawn into stars and turned into other elements, which is where all the other elements come from. So look, it's just a bit of amazing science which was achieved from Earth. They didn't have to go into space and go looking for these hydrogen filaments. They actually could just tune in and figure out exactly what they should look like, and then looked and went, yes, there they are. But yeah, it's interesting that it's actually proven or demonstrated the theories of galactic formation were actually pretty accurate, which is good to know that they're on the right track. Look, that's just a little bit of the spacey science from the last few weeks that have caught my eye. And as I said, it may not be the final frontier, but there's certainly a lot of space out there for science to explore.
Yes, you listen to Lost in Science, and as Stu said, it is a bit of science Christmas here for us.
Yay!
We're going to unwrap some Nobel Prizes.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly. That's scientific.
That'll do.
It's fine.
Now, of course, there are a few different Nobel Prizes given out. There are three of them that are particularly sciencey. You have medicine, physiology and medicine.
Yeah.
You have physics and you have chemistry. There's also economics. Now, we've discussed whether economics is actually science before. It is, I believe, called the dismal science. I think it was an economist who called it the dismal science.
Now, is the economics prize wasn't one of the original prizes, was it?
I think it's a bit different. Yeah, it's
been
awarded by a
added in
different
later
body.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was often given to things like psychology or mathematics as well, because they take a fairly broad view of what economics is. So sometimes you got to watch the economics prize. Sometimes it is quite sciencey.
Yeah.
So you got to keep an eye on that one as well. But you have your main three big
The big three.
ones. Yeah. And look, on the face of this year, we're going to run through what they are. They seem like pretty straightforward, this year's one, pretty non-controversial. But there is something there that I will get into that later on.
Okay.
It's manufactured controversy. I don't know. We'll see how well I can manufacture things.
I mean, does the Nobel Prize have to market themselves with controversy, or are people just interested anyway?
People are interested anyway,
Yeah.
but yes. Anyway, okay, so the first one that was ordered was the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, and it went to William J. Kaelin Jr., Sir Peter J. Ratcliffe, and Greg L. Semenza for their discoveries of how cells sense and adapt to oxygen availability. So this is a fairly technical, complicated thing. They discovered the mechanism The three of them obviously working with other people with them. It's got various stages of how the whole kind of response to oxygen works.
It does sound very, very technical. What is there? Is there some overwhelming need that we understand that?
Yeah, it's basically understanding how physiology works, how our biology works, and there is some use to it. I mean, ultimately, this helps you understand things like, there's some genetic illnesses, and it helps you understand things like cancer cells have a different relation to oxygen than normal cells.
Oh, so the way healthy cells react is different to the way unhealthy cells react, and probably the lack of ability to react would make you unhealthy as well.
Yeah, and also we need oxygen, so understanding how that works is fairly important.
It is pretty important.
So basically what happens, the main mechanism seems to be going on, is that there is this thing called the hypoxia-inducible factor, HIF-1 alpha.
Is this a gene?
This is a transcription factor. It
Right.
acts on the genes to basically transcribe the genes.
Okay.
And so essentially this is produced in the cells, but it is degraded by another protein, another sort of protease.
Yeah, so it's an enzyme that breaks down this
Proteasome,
this factor.
Yeah, and so there's other enzyme basically. It binds to the HIF-1 alpha to degrade it, and to bind to it, it needs a certain level of oxygen to do that. Because the oxygen is part of the reaction that helps this bind to the HIF-1 alpha.
Yep.
So what happens is when you don't have enough oxygen in the system, then the binding doesn't work. This proteasome doesn't degrade the HIF-1 alpha, so if levels of that increase, then it acts on the DNA in the genes to make them produce a hormone called erythropoietin. Erythropoietin, which then tells the body to make more red blood cells. To then increase the level of oxygen. So it's quite a complicated mechanism.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that happens. The other response of the body to low oxygen is to actually grow new blood vessels to try and get more blood in there. But the quicker response is to grow new red blood cells.
Yeah, and the more red blood cells, the more oxygen can be carried.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, it's quite a complicated thing. As I said, you could track through this through various other kind of genetic illnesses and other effects this might have. I find it also interesting, I'd heard of is erythropoietin before, because it is used as a performance-enhancing drug. This EPO is often shortened to, and it, of course, increases the amount of red blood cells in your body. So
athletes have been caught doping themselves
basically,
with that, boosting their amount of red blood cells.
To boost their blood oxygen carrying capacity. But it is used legitimately within your body for a legitimate purpose when the oxygen levels get low.
Probably makes it hard to trace too. If you've
that's one of the reasons.
If you've got elevated levels of that, they might just go, well, maybe you're just a genetic mutation.
Yeah.
So what else?
Okay, Nobel Prize in Physics. Now, this was awarded... it was awarded to two different groups. So it was awarded for contributions to our understanding of the evolution of the universe and Earth's place in the cosmos. That's the Nobel kind of sort of description there. Now, the way the Nobel Prizes work is usually it can be given to one person, it can be given to two people, it can be to three people equally, I think, or two. So one person, then two people who share the other half.
Right.
So in this case, half of it went to James Peebles for his theoretical discoveries in physical cosmology. The other half was given jointly to Michel Mayor and Didier Queloz, Swiss scientist, for the discovery of an exoplanet orbiting a solar-type star. So going through those two halves, James Peebles, what he did, back in the day, many, many years ago, he predicted that there would be cosmic microwave background radiation. This is essentially the heat left over from the explosion of the Big Bang. Yeah. And this is what we use now to study the early universe. So he predicted that. That was when they discovered by the radio astronomers Penzias and Wilson.
Oh, and this is when they thought it was a malfunction with their equipment, is that?
They thought it was various things. They thought it was like bird poo in the antenna and this kind of stuff. Yeah. But it turned out to be a signal coming from everywhere. And so it was people's work that helped them understand what it was. But he didn't just stop at predicting this. He also kind of pioneered the study of the cosmic microwave background, which has given us all kind of insight into the early universe and the structure of the universe overall. So you can look at the cosmic microwave background and you can work out things like the amount of matter to dark matter and dark energy and that sort of thing. So a lot of our understanding of the makeup of the universe, the composition, the fact that we know that like normal matter is only 5% of the mass and energy of the universe, that comes from studying things like the cosmic microwave background, and that's stuff that that Peebles pioneered.
Right.
Interestingly, it's a normal matter, as like atoms and stuff. It's only about 5% of the mass of the universe, and most of that is tied up in those hydrogen filaments, those intergalactic filaments that you're talking about.
Yeah, that we were talking about before. Yeah.
But yeah, you can see things like, basically, essentially from looking at the cosmic microwave background, you can see essentially how much interacting matter there must be compared to mass that is not interacting with anything, and it causes different effects and structures and frequencies in the microwave background.
Right.
Now, the other half, of course, was for finding an exoplanet. Now, this was an exoplanet that was around, as I said, a solar-type star. So, essentially, people had found exoplanets before these guys, but around pulsars. So, pulsars are a type of neutron star that emits radio pulses, and you can see the effect of, say, a planet's gravity on a pulsar by changes to like wobbling to its orbit and wobbles to the radio beam that's coming out of it.
So they were kind of easy to spot.
Easy
that
to
was
spot.
The point, yeah.
So these guys found it around a normal star. And again, they looked at the effect of the planet's gravity on the stars. You can see its orbit or its motion. It's sort of wobbling as the effect of the gravity of the planet. So that means you're basically looking for large planets, things much bigger than Jupiter. Nowadays, of course, we have powerful telescopes. We can actually see much smaller planets transiting in front of their parent star. But they were the first ones to confirm that they were around like regular stars. Now they've been found around all kinds of different stars, and so we know there are a lot of planets out there.
So when they say a solar-like star, they mean a star that's similar to our sun.
Well, they mean a star that's just a regular star that burns hydrogen, fusion, that kind of stuff. So a main sequence star.
Yep.
Okay. Chemistry. Let's look at chemistry.
Can't ever forget chemistry.
I try not to. It's probably the one that's had the most, the one that's had the most effect on our lives. This was the Nobel Prize in Chemistry went to John Goodenough, M. Stanley Whittingham, and Akira Yoshino for the development of lithium-ion batteries.
Oh, wow. Where would we be without lithium-ion batteries?
Well, that's the thing. Where would we be without lithium-ion batteries? They have basically given us the modern technology that we enjoy today.
Yeah, I mean, probably lots of people listening are relying on lithium-ion batteries to listen to what they're listening on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Whittingham, he found that lithium, basically, it's a very light element. It readily becomes ionized, or loses an electron, it becomes ionized. So it's very good for, as a battery, to release electricity. And because it's so light, you get a very kind of efficient battery that is quite lightweight as well.
Yeah, so it's good for putting in electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodenough found ways other components to add in to make them more powerful, including also non-toxic materials like iron phosphate can be added in the electrodes and stuff like that. So they're not only very kind of light, but they're also made from non-toxic materials. And Akira Yoshino found a way to use, rather than using a solid lump of lithium, he used lithium ions embedded in kind of a substrate, which basically protects the lithium from corrosion and means that the battery is much more durable, can be recharged many, many times.
Right.
So together these things have given us, these lightweight mobile devices. They've given us obviously lightweight batteries for electric cars, and also now cheap storage for solar power generation. So the Elon Musk's
electric cars
walls, the
power wall,
the power walls, that kind of stuff. So this is it's a fairly big, significant discovery that is the basis for a lot of current and near future technology, you could say.
Right.
Now, of those winners, John Goodenough was also notable because he was the oldest ever laureate at 97 years old.
So when did he do his work that he was awarded for? This is years and years ago, obviously. Yeah.
Apparently, he still goes to the lab every day.
Wow.
But yeah, one of the rules of the Nobel Prize is it can't be given posthumously.
Yeah.
You have to be alive when, well, at least when you're nominated. I think you can die just before you're awarded. But once they decide to give it to you,
I was going to say, I hope that that would be in the rules, that once they've awarded it to you, even if you don't get there to actually get the award, you still get the award. Surely, yeah.
Now, so I did say I think there's a bit of a controversy.
Yeah.
So, okay, for that, I am going to look at one of the non-science prizes.
Okay,
so the Literature Prize.
Oh,
now,
yes.
I don't know if you're aware, but there were 2 literature prizes given out this year, and that's because they did not award a Nobel Prize for Literature last year. And the reason they did that is because there was a sexual assault scandal in the committee that awards the Literature Nobel Prize, and so they decided they would not give out an award in 2018. So they had one sort of left over. That's why they gave 2.
Right.
So the 2018 award was actually
up.
given out this year.
Yeah.
Now, this was, of course, in the part of in the wake of the Me Too movement as well.
Yep.
And now, particularly focused on the Literature Prize, people are saying, that there should be, we need to clean it up. So it needs to be basically also more diverse. We need to actually lift our game here.
Yeah.
And that means, obviously, more women getting prizes, but also less of a European focus, because the Literature Prize has been very European focused.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that's very sensible. Literature is all about art. You can see you want those different perspectives here. But, the same principles really apply to the other prizes as well.
Yeah.
And when we look at these science prizes, basically we have 9 winners, and they're all men.
Yeah.
They are mostly from Europe or America. We had Akira Yoshino as the sole person not from Europe or the United States.
Yeah.
So it's very much a non-diverse group.
I mean,
of winners.
we've gone through in detail how few women have been awarded the science prizes at the Nobel Prizes, and it really is, it's a very small number, embarrassingly small.
They are slowly increasing. 12 women have won a prize in physiology and medicine, 5 in chemistry, only 3 in physics, and one of those was Donna Strickland, who won last year.
Yeah.
So, the numbers, if you look at the numbers of the years, they are slowly increasing, but at a much slower rate than is needed. Now, obviously, I know a bit more about physics than the other sciences involved here.
Yeah.
But it is worth looking at, because obviously aware that there are some notable omissions. Now, one I think that is particularly notable in the light of this year's award is Vera Rubin, who essentially provided some of the first evidence for dark matter. And I'm not saying there's no controversy around dark matter, but we've had prizes awarded for dark matter and dark energy before, and James Peebles today got an award for cosmology, which involves dark matter as a study of the early universe and that sort of thing. So it makes you wonder why someone like Vera Rubin missed out when she did such groundbreaking work. Now, as I said, you can't win a prize after you're dead. She did her work decades and decades ago. She died in 2016.
Yeah.
So there was plenty of time to recognise her for achievements.
Plenty of opportunity. Yeah.
And it's not like they're ignoring cosmology because they've just given out a prize for it.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that there is still a lot of their game they can lift.
Yeah.
And I guess all we can do is hope that next year they do a bit better.
Yeah. That's all we've got time for on this episode of Lost in Science. Thanks for tuning in and joining us. Lost in Science is recorded at the studios of 3CR in Melbourne and broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the financial assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. If you want to talk back to us, you can get in touch. We have a Gmail account, lostinsight@gmail. You can also find us on Twitter and on the Facebook. And if that's not enough Lost in Science for you, you can always tune in again next week, where the team will once again get Lost in Science!
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.